the heroin-like power of Fox News nearly killed Ralph Yarl. Ralph Yarl, of course, the 16-year-old who was shot in the head, and the fellow tried to shoot him in the chest as well, but he had his arm up, so he got shot in the arm. Is home now, recovering, but nearly died. What's the difference between heroin and Fox News? Heroin was rolled out in 1898. Bayer Company in Germany rolled it out. It's called diamorphine is the actual chemical name for it, but they named it heroin after the German word for heroic. And it took us a generation to discover how addictive it was. It was rolled out 2 years before the turn of the century and was banned in the United States in 1924 and around the world by 1933, really, basically. And heroin's power comes from its ability to reach below our conscious level of control and basically grab hold of, one of the reward systems of the brain, in this case, the opiate system. But there are other systems. There's also the dopamine system. And, the parallels to this and how the Sackler family took OxyContin, oxycodone, which, by the way, was invented around the same time heroin was. In fact, Adolf Hitler was addicted to oxycodone. But the Sackler family popularized it and in the late 90s and turned it into, in 1995, and by lying to doctors, essentially, and telling them it was less addictive than other narcotics, and made billions, the Sackler family, which, they've lost a few of those billions, but they keep many, many more of their billions. The parallels to media, particularly including social media, are startling. Mark Zuckerberg, who's now a billionaire, developed Facebook in 2004 as a way to rate girls at Harvard University. But once they figured out this algorithm that gave people more and more of what they wanted, basically dopamine jolt after dopamine jolt, it became highly addictive, or at least habituating. And Zuckerberg's refusal to publish that algorithm or make it transparent has a lot of people suggesting that, basically he's following in the footsteps of the Sackler family, selling, pushing an addictive product on Americans. This same algorithmic model has been used by Twitter and by TikTok and others, making billionaires out of these people in the social media business. But the social media's addictive nature comes from that delivery system, from the algorithm. I wrote about this in my book, The Hidden History of Big Brother. Fox News's delivery system is a little different. I mean, there's been debates over the years about whether television itself is addictive. This goes back to things like Jerry Mander's book, Four Arguments Against Television, or Joseph Chilton Pierce's book, Magical Child, really digging into the addictive nature of television. But the difference between Fox News and, or so-called news, and other media is that it is not the delivery system, television, it's the content. So, if you were to say that the algorithm of social media is like the syringe for heroin, the content of Fox News is the heroin. It's hate and fear. Hate and fear produce a dopamine rush. And particularly when you combine it with this sense of we're all in this together. We're part of a small community who really understands how the world works. We're the only ones who know. And Limbaugh pioneered this back in the 80s, a year after Ronald Reagan stopped suspended enforcement of the Fairness Doctrine. Limbaugh rolled out his show, with some help from very wealthy patrons, and established this brand new thing that we hadn't seen basically since Father Coughlin was retired, of hate talk radio. And then, Reagan also fast-tracked Rupert Murdoch's citizenship into the United States so that he could own some television stations, which led to, in 1995, as I recall, Fox News, or maybe 96, Fox News becoming a thing. So there was this astonishing study just published in the Washington Post about a week and a half ago that found that, I'll quote from the Washington Post, quote, "Simply spotting the Fox News masthead may be enough to prompt some white people to expect that blacks are guilty. Other research found that Fox News has regularly blamed black people for rioting, and that Fox News' website is more likely to show black people in stories about crime. That in turn suggests that Fox News might reinforce racial stereotypes. And yeah, they play to this lowest common denominator of fear. And so here we have the guy who shot Ralph Yarl, his grandson, his name is Andrew Lester, is the guy who shot him. His grandson is named Clint Ludwig, and he's 28 years old. Lester is 84. And Ludwig, the grandson, told the Kansas City Star, and I quote, "I've gotten older and gained my own political views, and he's become staunchly right-wing, further down the right-wing rabbit hole as far as doing the election-denying conspiracy stuff and COVID conspiracies and disinformation, fully buying into the Fox News OAN kind of line. I feel like it's really further radicalized him in a lot of ways." And then he goes on to say that his grandfather was caught up in a 24-hour news cycle of fear and paranoia. He says, and then the NRA started pushing their stand your ground stuff and that you have to defend your home. And when I heard that happen, I was appalled and shocked that it transpired, but I didn't disbelieve that it was true. The second I heard it, I was like, yeah, I could see him doing that. In other words, shooting Ralph Yarl. He said he was fully into that. He'd watch Fox News all day, every day, blaring in his living room. And, it really took a toll on this guy's mental health. It was interesting. Yesterday, Joe Scarborough went on, he had Anand Giridharadas on his program and went on an extended rant about how the NRA and Fox News were basically poisoning the minds of Americans. So all this raises the question, what do we do about this? Well, what I'm suggesting is that social media, hate talk radio, right-wing television, these are not pharmaceuticals that can be regulated by the FDA or the DEA. And because they traffic in speech, when we've got the First Amendment, they can't really be shut down or regulated in any kind of aggressive way. But, and this is the important point, to continue to exist and profit from peddling hate and fear, they almost they almost continue to enjoy a societal consensus that they are legitimate parts of the American media landscape. Without that consensus, they are reduced to an Alex Jones level kind of subculture status, like the John Birch Society was in the 1950s, or the Klan is today. And, these media guys have made billions off brainwashing their listeners and convincing them that bigotry is acceptable and that the most important thing the government can do is cut taxes for billionaires, including the media billionaires. But you can't argue facts with these folks, with the people who are addicted to Fox News. You just can't. You've heard me try to do that on this program when they call in. So what do? Well, it turns out that when right-wing media addicts discover that they've been lied to, and lied to for profit, that every 2 weeks Tucker Carlson cashes a paycheck of over $1.5 million every 2 weeks. This guy is getting rich off his lies and his bigotry and his hate and his great replacement theory and all this stuff. When people realize that multimillionaires and billionaires have been lying to them for profit, that's when you can break the spell. That's when they can be relegated to the Alex Jones category of conspiracy nut. And so, the bottom line is that this is a job that we can all undertake. Rather than trying to debate, the nuances of black-on-black crime or voting fraud or COVID conspiracies and masks, rather than trying to engage in those debates, the important thing is to let your right-wing friends know that they've been suckered, that they've been played for suckers, that they are the victims of a bunch of really, really mind-bogglingly wealthy people who got wealthy. Rupert Murdoch is the 72nd richest man on earth, who got wealthy by selling lies, hate, and fear. It's like a drug. It's this dopamine buzz.